organizational culture and organizational forms. And today I'm very happy to be sharing some thoughts on what we see a lot in our discussions with leaders and managers. And the topic we see a lot is how it is to let go, how to move to new forms of leadership, and why is letting go so difficult. And I would like to start with a quote. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up the people to collect wood, assign them tasks and work. Rather teach them to yearn for the endless immensity of the sea or the horizon. Now, I know most of you have seen this quote. You see it a lot on LinkedIn. Some managers even print it out and have it hanging in their office and saying, this is my leadership philosophy. And for us, it's more than that, because it shows really the basis of what we see or what we believe is a modern way of leadership, or the new or actually only way of leadership to actually reach that horizon and reach goals in your firm, in your company, in your organizations. And we have seen that this is only possible if leaders and managers learn to let go. And I will talk a little bit about that and also why it is so difficult. I hope you can see the entire slide, because in my side, you can't see the top line. What it says is leadership is too important to just leave it to a few at the top. And what do we mean by that? We think that it's not possible when there are only a few people trying to lead an entire firm. They can manage an entire firm, but we think the leading it to the horizon is only possible when everybody is, and I say, some kind of leader. It is not enough to just lead the firm or the organization. It only works when leading means leading everybody, and especially in this context, leading is not management. So we're talking a lot about the difference between management and leadership. So you can say at the end of the day, leadership is actually for everybody. And this is where we are coming from. Very often when we talk to leaders or managers or C-level colleagues, their definition of being a leader is, you're a leader when you have a lot of followers. We don't think that. Let me try if you can see it like this better. I'm not sure if you can see then all the lines. So I'm trying to just explain what I'm saying there. So in our vision, we think a leader is not a leader because he has a lot of followers. We think newer leaders or modern leaders are leading other leaders. And we think that leading a ecosystem, that can be a firm or a company or a group or a little team, means letting go of that old definition of being a leader who is leading a lot of followers, but it's about letting it happen, letting everybody lead. And lead, again, is not necessarily management, but it's leading your thoughts, leading your work, leading your work life. So when we, all of us, get there and become leaders who are leading other leaders, we think we become truly like social architects of our firm, of our group. And like this, we can reach that horizon that we mentioned earlier at the quote. And we are trying to actually build a ship. Many of you maybe notice the feeling in this picture, in such a room. We see a lot that now our leadership at the moment is more management. We lead with MBOs. Now we lead with KPIs. And KPI usually is meant as a key performance indicator. We like the impression KPI means keep people inspired much more. We see that leadership is often defined by setting objectives, now doing yearly assessments, by appointing people, bosses, leaders, drawing boxes and org chart. And very often leadership is happening like in the week before the Christmas dinner, now when your boss has to do 6 or 7 or 10 year-end talks. And quickly before the Christmas dinner, he gets rid of that and just does a quick meeting where you discuss your performance and your maybe even leadership, if that is a topic, even if it was activities that were in February, and within an hour, leadership is happening as a kind of a management, and it's happening in MBO discussions, in measurement, in control. And this is exactly what we think we have to let go as leaders. And we know this is difficult. But it does not work when we just have all these effects, like in this room, where people and individuals and our team members, which hopefully soon we call followers, are being controlled and are being managed. Leadership only works when we let go of all these old world and old leadership style parts of a daily leading a firm. And you notice how we do that nowadays. Now, when we are trying to organize a ecosystem, and we work with org charts, and very often they look something like you see here, but this is not leading a firm. This is organizing a firm. And when we look at new companies, when we have new clients, new discussions, and we see such org charts, what we are trying to do is we're trying to look at the lines first. So very often it's a very interesting effect when you look at these org charts and you take out the boxes and you only have lines left. And then you're trying to see if you still understand what that company is achieving, what the horizon is for that company when they are trying to build ships, if I stay with my quote at the beginning. So the lines are much more interesting than the boxes. And this is exactly what we think we have to let go. We have to let go of these boxes. We have to let go of this checking up. The big box is checking up on the smaller box. The bigger box is managing the smaller box. We do not believe that this is the way to have your people building a ship and getting to the horizon. So it's a lot of telling and measuring, and we see that a lot of organizations and a lot of leaders have understood that. And when we are trying to introduce new forms of organization, you see forms like this round thing on the top right. You're going to circular organizations where you actually are trying to achieve that you introduce self-organization, and leaders have understood that, and they are trying with different forms like this one to have a natural way of organizing their firm. They have understood that, yes, self-organization and passing on your leadership from that, what here is still a middle circle, or in the old organizations at the top, in the top box, you pass it on to the teams. So all these circles you see here in this little symbol are teams, and they're self-organized. And there are no more lines as such, and especially there are no more hierarchies, because as soon as we talk hierarchies and we talk boxes again, and management and control, and controlling the big box, controlling the small box. So we see that a lot of firms and companies are trying to achieve that. And the picture in the background I took this morning, because I see at the moment a lot of birds flying south to the warmer areas of Europe, or even Africa. And they also organize themselves. And I thought it's quite interesting that birds, they definitely don't have an org chart before they leave cold Switzerland and flying south. They organize themselves in flight. So I thought this is a nice picture also to show how self-organization works. So we see that. We see that managers are getting there. Organizations are starting to understand that self-organization is definitely the way to reach that horizon that you have at the beginning of the quote. So it's, again, letting go of that old chart, letting go of boxes, and letting go of checking up. Now, why do so many companies still fail? Why do they still do not get there? And we see that a lot. And most of our clients are our clients because they do not get to that stage. And we have seen in many, many talks that it's still about kind of risks, and it's still very hard, and we still very often say, okay, I understand what you're saying, I understand self-organization, yes, okay, I understand leaders, and leaders lead other leaders, and always at the end of the discussions we get a but how do we do this? How do I control? How do I make sure? So it's all about how the leaders nowadays look at risk. And to them, very often, whatever they know, all the processes they know, that there's not really a risk, they understand and they can live. And all the new things, and that letting go is exactly one of these new things, they don't know, and they see it as a risk. And that is a very interesting discussion we have a lot, now that they are ready to let go of a lot. And as soon as it's about letting go in leadership and letting go in all their old management tasks, they do not know what it means, they do not know where it's going, and it's a risk to them. And what I've learned, and what we have learned in many discussions with experts, it most probably comes from the brain. Actually, I understand it comes from the brainstem, because we have learned since thousands and thousands of years that everything that is new or different is some kind of a risk. It can risk that our daily task of gathering food for our family when we were still living in the cave, was risky because it was different. And how do we react now when there's a risk or when there's a threat? We either fight or we flight. And we see that a lot in daily talks with all our leaders. The fighting really comes to the day when we see how there is resistance to changes, and when we feel the resistance in moving into new forms and directions, even experimenting new forms, or they kind of do the flight version where they come with different organizational options where they just say, okay, we do remote leadership or remote management, maybe even saying that, look, I'm a kind of a new leader already. I need other leaders because they're all sitting at home, and they're trying to avoid the new way of leadership and the letting go of all the old management tools by just saying, okay, I'm further away, and this is kind of letting go as well. So the brain says, yeah, okay, it's cool. I understand that. I understand new organizational forms, but then the brainstem comes and says, well, but we still need control. And it happens a lot. We have done huge projects where we have gotten to the evening before rolling out new leadership forms, new org charts, and then you still, at the evening before, you get that call from one of the directors or decision makers and saying, okay, this is all cool, but how do I check? Or how do I control? So the brain is playing some tricks here on our leaders and our managers on their way on new forms of leadership. So what do we need if we get them more? And that is something that is also difficult to explain. But at the end of the day, we need more courage. We need more courage in leadership. We don't need more courage in management. And we have very courageous leaders all over the world, and they show courage when they go into new markets. They show courage when they have new strategies they're going for. They have courage in even introducing new culture. But the courage to let go, they very often cannot bring up. The courage to actually learn to let go, and also to maybe move into a new role, that is very difficult to them. They have to learn to trust the process, trust the new form of leadership. They have to learn also to trust the people as such, and not only individuals, and not saying I've hired the best people, so I trust them and we will be successful. They have to bring up the courage to actually learn and let go. And that is difficult. And I'm sure if I ask you now, when you're listening to what I'm trying to say here, and you also think, okay, now there's some things that probably hurt when you have to let go. And if you take 2 or 3 seconds to just think about it, what would hurt you the most if you have to let go? And that is actually not an easy question. Actually, the answers are not very easy to that. And we know from the discussions, if we have honest discussions, the leaders say, yeah, no, it would really hurt to let go of power. I love the power, and that is cool, and I find that very sexy. It would really hurt to let go of that. We call it management applause, all the recognition you get, the view, the management glamour, if you want, your title, your salary, the many forms of applause and recognition. That would hurt to let that go. And it is even also hurting to really admit that you're going into a way where you let other people shine, where you let what you used to call followers, and now are your co-leaders, if you want, that you want really to let them shine, and not always the person in the bigger box further up the organizational chart. Because remember, in our definition, they're all leaders. We are not leaders and followers anymore. So they're all yearning for that same horizon. So that means they will get that applause, and they will get that, but really hurts to let go for the leaders. And it's then very often about explaining that they will get different kind of applause, and it's a different kind of power they still have. So they're not really letting go of everything, but it's actually letting go of the old form of recognition and applause and being ready for receiving the new form. And it's probably not coming from the same angle and same direction. It's probably not coming from the top, and the top in the old form of organizations. So it is difficult, we know that. And as long as the leaders and managers are looking at their firm as a system, And as a system here, in this sense, as a machine, with cogwheels, and you have a lot of people, but at the end of the day, they work like cogwheels. And if you turn one wheel to the right, some other wheels turn to the left. As long as you look at your organization as a machine, then you also have the same thinking. A machine needs oil, a machine needs maintenance. Now you have to fix certain wheels, and then you have to replace other wheels. You measure the temperature, the speed of the cogwheels. It's a totally different looking at your organization when you think that your company, your firm, your group, your team is a machine. And there's no room for new leadership. And of course, in that view, it's very difficult to then also let go of the tools you're using to keep that machine up and running. And if you get to a stage where you can look at your firm as a social system, then you also have made the first step to new leadership, to letting go of old leadership and management forms. If you look at your firm as a social system where the sum of behaviors and the sum of talents and the sum of creativity in all these peoples, also, of course, the sum of all the just work and energy they put in. And you see all these lines, like here on the pictures, that are not the lines of the org chart anymore, but it is the exchange, and it is the energy that they build up when working together. And again, when they're building that ship, because they all want to get to the horizon, then you have reached also the stage where you can understand what it means to be in a new form of leadership and what it means to really let go. So that means if I go back to my quote from the beginning, you could say, look, if you want to build a ship, first you have to learn that you have to let go. And this is what I was trying to share with you. Moving from management, old management role, or old thinking of management, to leadership, or to being leaders, true leaders, means letting go. Letting go of old firms, also letting go of your fear of risk, letting go of a lot of tools that worked before and that are not working because the people that you used to call or view as followers and are now surrounding leaders will reach that horizon only if you, as a manager or now leader, learn to let go. So this is it from my side. I would like to thank you for listening. I saw one question coming up, but it disappeared on my screen. So I don't know if you still see that question, so I can answer it.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions that come through, actually. Okay. First one, how do you engage the bottom management to increase the leadership style across the organization and avoid having followers?
By explaining to the layer above them, because he said bottom management, if I heard you correctly, that change in behavior and leadership and following is only happening by living by example, living by example, living by example. So it's the only way to get there is you have to still start at the top, because in the old forms they're still the most visible, and it only works in some kind of old traditional top-down approach if you want. So it's about leading and living literally by example.
Okay. Another question, I think that this was kind of answered. Maybe Anna's looking for more of a specific, a few tips here. What helps to make managers be leaders? If things perhaps that you haven't already mentioned, what would you say? A few ideas that really help a manager become a leader. What are maybe traits?
I think to really understand that the sum of all behaviors of your team is actually what is making your success, and not you organizing and orchestrating the team. I think if you can let go that the sum of the team is not the result of the leader of the team, but the sum or the result of the teamwork is the result of your little new ecosystem. When you have understood that step, then you understand to let go, and then you understand to not check up every Friday week how many phone calls they have made, but you discuss the horizon, or not even the sales target, but the difference you agreed with the team to make.
Listen, we are now coming to the end of this session together. It's been insightful. It's been productive and certainly helpful, I'm sure, for many people listening. Just to maybe shift their mindset a little bit about the ideas of really kind of letting go and opening up a few doors to move forward. Listen, thank you so much. Again, listeners, audience, you like what you've heard, you like this man here, and you like to hear more from him or more about what he's doing, certainly link up on LinkedIn. You can find out all about that and take those conversations forward. Thank you so much for being with us, sharing your insights, and thanks for your time as well.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the day to everybody, and then have a nice weekend. Take care, everybody.